Mark Lifman is a name that will be familiar to quite a lot of Cape Townians. There will be some that have more detailed knowledge of the underworld in which he is alleged to operate. There will be others that will go, Mark Lifman, yeah, I know that name, and oh yes, yeah, that guy. And he was shot dead yesterday in George, a drive-by shooting. I don't think police have yet confirmed that the 57-year-old who was shot dead in the parking lot at a George Mall is Mark Lifman, but it's quite clear that it is. Caryn Dolley has literally written the books on this country's underworld figures, and joins us now to talk about this. Caryn, good morning.
Good morning, John. Thank you.
When I read the news yesterday afternoon, I kind of went, yeah, it was kind of something that was waiting to happen. There appears to be so much, I don't know, what is it? These sort of volcanic stuff bubbling away in the underworld situation in Cape Town, that something like this seemed almost inevitable, would you say?
Yes. So, I mean, I've covered alleged organized crime, and I've covered organized crime for so many years, and it seems every few years there is sort of this really rattling assassination that happens. And I mean, we've seen it with figures including Cyril Beaker, before that Cyril Beaker and Mark Lifman's associate, Yuri Ulyanitsky. So this does feel inevitable in the sense that there are these sort of massive murders that shake organized crime circles every once in a while, and probably more than once in a while, but yeah.
And I mean, there have also been rumors of arrests. I don't know if you've been able to confirm those unofficially or officially. And it might be quite difficult to find the people who actually pulled the triggers. But in terms of who gave the order for Mark Lifman to be shot, might be difficult to prove in a court of law. But do you think close observers like yourself of the underworld in and around Cape Town have a pretty good idea of what block of the underworld would have wanted Mark Lifman killed and ordered his killing?
So that's a tough one to answer right now. And there have been sort of these murmurings of arrest. Police are yet to officially confirm that. But I just want to point out something, John. Mark Lifman was an accused in a murder trial. He was currently standing accused in a murder trial. And he has consistently over the years, despite other criminal charges and acquittals and arrests, etc., consistently denied he is innocent of wrongdoing. So if you kind of step back and you look at it all, it's more than a decade of accusations, allegations, and denials. And that's only what we know externally to what is really happening right on the ground and within offices or wherever. So it's really difficult to answer that because it's such a broad spectrum of allegations, accusations, and denials associated with him.
He's often put in one camp, and Nafis Modak, who is on trial at the moment. I mean, Mark Lifman was due in court today in connection with his alleged ordering of the hit of Brian Weinstein so that he could allegedly take over Weinstein's alleged steroid empire. And so it's been Lifman's lot versus Modak's lot. Lifman is now dead. Modak is on trial. Does that destabilize the underworld in a very significant way?
I think any shooting would destabilize organized crime circles, any high-profile shooting. What I have noticed in the past is that when there's a high-profile shooting, there's almost like a lull afterwards. I can't say if that's going to be the case this time, but in the past I've been told that lull is because people sort of back off, wait to see what happens next. Is someone going to be arrested, etc.? And then you'll see it flare up again. So, I mean, this is such a strange and unpredictable arena that we just literally have to wait and see and hear.
Because, I mean, this is now, I think, the fourth person in the Brian Weinstein murder trial who has himself been shot dead. Red Stevens, Jason Mates, and I can't remember the name of the other person. So, again, you kind of go, there's got to be some link between that murder of Weinstein, what was that, 7 or 8 years ago, and what has been happening subsequently with the people who are accused of having been involved in the killing of Weinstein.
Yeah, there does seem to be a trend, but again, I want to point out that there are, Mark Lifman was standing trial in connection with Brian Weinstein, aka the Steroid King's murder. At the same time, there were allegations and accusations coming out of the Nafiz Modak trial, which is hinged on the 2020 assassination of policeman Shalkanier. Accusations coming out of there involved they were this rival group against Lifman and co. So and I think what you are saying is spot on in that everything in the end does inevitably connect. There are connects. So, yeah, other than that, I'm not quite sure how better to answer you.
Yeah. I mentioned earlier, Caryn, that I was some years ago, probably at least 8-10 years ago, I was having one of the fairly regular discussions about the criminal underworld, Mark Lifman and so on. And he called in. He'd obviously been listening in his car, and he called in and he tried to persuade me that he was simply a businessman, and that he took great care not to break the law. And he was charming and he didn't persuade me. I mean, I'm still convinced that he was deeply involved in the underworld and responsible for a great deal of violence. But he managed to, whether this would have been the trial that would have seen him found guilty, we simply don't know, because he is now dead. But he was guilty of many things, even though he wasn't proven guilty of many things, would you say?
So, again, it's really difficult to figure out what was actually plotting, because he has consistently said he's not involved in crime, and he has consistently come up against accusations that he is involved in crime. So we zoom out and we look at this and we say, okay, this man says he is not guilty, that he is being targeted, there is a witch hunt against him, which would mean that there is ulterior motives from the state. And in between that, we've got accusations of rogue police officers siding and working with suspects. In between that, there is inevitably truth. And perhaps the best way to answer this, John, is to say that in organized crime circles and through interviews ad nauseum with individuals linked to or looking into the underworld, they always mention the only fact when it comes to organized crime is the death toll, the murder toll. And what we're looking at here is a murder, and that is fact. And I think if we work back from there, your answers can be sufficiently answered.
Caryn Dolley, thank you very much indeed. Writes the Daily Maverick and writes wonderful, chillingly wonderful books about the underworld in the Western Cape.